I'd been working the graveyard shift at Foodbeast for about 3 months when it happened. You know the type of shift, 2 a.m. to 10 a.m., when the fluorescent lights buzz louder than the customers' voices, and time moves like cold syrup. It was around 4:30 in the morning. That's the deadest hour, when even the insomniacs and night owls have given up and gone home. I was restocking the candy aisle, my mind wandering to whether I'd have time to grab breakfast before my morning class, when I heard the automatic doors slide open. I glanced up and saw him shuffling in, an old man, maybe 70 or 80, wearing a stained brown overcoat despite it being June. His hair was wild and gray, sticking out in all directions like he'd been electrocuted, but it was his eyes that made my stomach drop. They were wide, unblinking, and fixed directly on me from across the store. I tried to smile, to give that practiced customer service greeting, but the words died in my throat. He didn't go to the aisles, didn't even look at the products. He just walked straight toward me with his determined, almost mechanical gait. "Can I help you find something?" I managed to squeak out, taking a small step backward. My hand instinctively moved toward the pepper spray my manager had given me on my first day, the one I'd laughed about and nearly forgotten. He didn't answer. He just kept walking, closing the distance between us. 10 feet, 5 feet, 3 feet. That's when I noticed his lips were moving, whispering something I couldn't quite make out. It sounded like he was praying or chanting, the words tumbling over each other in a rapid, fevered stream. Before I could react, his hand shot out, faster than any old man should be able to move, and his fingers clamped around my wrists like a vice. His skin was ice cold and papery, and his grip was strong enough to make me gasp. "You need to listen to me," he hissed, pulling me closer. His breath smelled like copper and something rotten, something that had been left in the sun too long. Hell is a real place. Do you understand me? It's real. I tried to pull away, but he held firm, his fingernails digging into my skin. I could feel my pulse hammering against his thumb. "The devil," he continued, his voice rising to a near shriek that echoed to the empty store, "already has his hand on your soul. I can see it. I can see his fingers wrapped around you, pulling you down, down, down." Panic flooded my system. I yanked backward hard, nearly losing my balance, but he didn't let go. His other hand came up and grabbed my shoulder, and suddenly we were face to face. So close I could see the yellowish crust in the corners of his eyes and the spittle gathering at the corners of his mouth. "You have to repent," he whispered urgently, almost desperately, "before it's too late, before he dragged you screaming into the fire where the worms never die and the flames never stop burning your flesh." That's when something in me snapped. Maybe it was survival instinct, maybe it was pure terror, but I screamed loud and long and shoved him as hard as I could. He stumbled backward, finally releasing my wrist, and I ran. I didn't run to the office or to call my manager. I ran straight out the front door into the parking lot, into the humid pre-dawn air, my heart threatening to burst out of my chest. I stood there under the yellow sodium lights, shaking, watching through the window. The old man hadn't followed me. He was standing in the same spot, staring at where I'd been, his lips still moving in that same fevered prayer or curse or whatever it was. Then, slowly, he turned and walked back out through the automatic doors, disappearing into darkness like he'd never been there at all. When my manager arrived 20 minutes later, I showed him the security footage. We watched it together. Watched the old man enter, watched him grab me, watched the whole terrifying encounter. But here's the thing that still keeps me up at night. My manager went back to the footage from the exterior cameras, trying to see where the man had come from or gone to. There was nothing. The parking lot footage showed no one approaching the store, no one leaving, It was as if he'd materialized inside the building and vanished the same way. I quit 2 weeks later, but sometimes, even now, I'll feel a cold pressure on my wrist, like fingers wrapping around it, and I'll hear that raspy voice in my head. Hell is a real place. Working nights at a gas station off Highway 47 wasn't my dream job, but it paid the bills while I finished my degree. The overnight shift was usually quiet, just truckers grabbing coffee, the occasional insomniac buying cigarettes, and me, standing behind bulletproof glass playing games on my phone. It was a Tuesday night, or technically Wednesday morning, around 3 a.m. I remember because Tuesday nights were always the slowest, and I'd been counting down the hours until my shift ended at 6. I was reorganizing the lottery tickets when I heard the door chime. I looked up, ready to offer my automatic welcome in, but the greeting froze on my lips. The guy who walked in was wearing a black ski mask and a dark hoodie, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. Every alarm bell in my head started ringing at once. In the 5 months I'd worked there, we'd been robbed twice. Both times on night shifts, both times had been fast and terrifying. This was about to be the third. He walked straight to the counter, and I could see his eyes through the mask holes, dark, darting nervously around the store. He pulled one hand out of his pocket, and I saw it. A black handgun, maybe a 9mm. I wasn't sure. I'd never been good with guns. "Open the register," he said, his voice cracking slightly. He was young, I realized, probably not even 25. My hands were already shaking, my mouth dry as cotton. This was it. This was the moment I'd been trained for, the scenario we'd role-played during orientation. Stay calm. Comply. Don't be a hero. Money can be replaced. You can't. I reached for the register, my fingers fumbling on the touchscreen. But nothing happened. The drawer didn't pop open. I pressed it again. Still nothing. My stomach dropped. "What are you doing?" the robber demanded, his voice rising. He waved the gun slightly, and I felt my bladder weaken. "Open it. Now!" "I'm trying," I said, my voice shaking. "It's not. It won't." And then I remembered the new system. They'd installed it 3 weeks ago after the last robbery. The register wouldn't open unless you scan an item first. It was supposed to prevent employees from taking money during their shifts, a security measure that had annoyed all of us but had seemed harmless enough. Until now. "The register won't open," I said, the words tumbling out. "Not unless I scan something. It's the new system. I can't override it, I swear." The robber stared at me. I stared back through the glass partition between us. I could hear his heavy breathing, see the confusion spreading across what little of his face was visible. "What do you mean it won't open?" he said slowly, as if he hadn't quite processed my words. "I have to scan an item first," I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. "Any item, then it'll open." We stood there in the most surreal silence I've ever experienced. Here we were, armed robber and terrified clerk, stuck in a situation neither of us had anticipated. The gun was still pointed at me, but the robber's hand had lowered slightly, and I could see the bewilderment in his eyes. "So," he said finally, "scan something." My mind raced. What was I supposed to scan? Did it matter? Would corporate fire me for facilitating a robbery? Could I get in trouble for helping him? But then the gun raised slightly, reminding me that philosophical questions about corporate policy were probably less important than surviving the next few minutes. "Okay," I said, my voice cracking. "Okay, I need you to grab something. Anything. From the store." There was another beat of silence. Then, incredibly, absurdly, the robber turned around and walked back into the aisles. I watched him go, my legs trembling so badly I had to grip the counter to stay upright. Was this real? Was this actually happening? He reappeared a moment later, and I nearly laughed, a hysterical, terrified sound I barely managed to choke back. He was holding a Twix bar, a king-size Twix bar, the wrapper glinting under fluorescent lights. He set it on the counter, sliding it through the gap in the partition. The gun was still in his other hand, but something about the whole situation had shifted into this bizarre, dreamlike territory where nothing made sense anymore. I picked up the Twix bar with shaking hands and scanned it. Beep. The register drawer popped open with a cheerful little ding, and we both stared at it for a second. "Take it," I said quietly. "Just take and go." He reached through the partition and grabbed the cash, maybe $300, mostly small bills and coins. He shoved it into his hoodie pocket, the movements jerky and unpracticed. Then he looked at the Twix bar, still sitting on the counter between us, and he took that too. He backed toward the door, the gun still visible but pointing at the ground now. "Don't call the cops," he said, but there was no threat in his voice anymore, just exhaustion. Then he was gone, the door chime sounding cheerfully as it closed behind him. I stood there for a full minute, maybe longer, staring at the empty doorway. Then I hit the silent alarm under the counter and sank to the floor, my legs finally giving out completely. The police arrived 8 minutes later. I gave my statement, showed them the security footage. They never caught the guy, though they said they'd keep an eye out for someone purchasing Twix bars. I kept working there for another 6 months before I found a better job, but I never ate a Twix bar again. Every time I see one, I'm back behind that counter at 3 a.m., watching a masked man walk through the aisles, shopping for candy while planning a robbery. They say truth is stranger than fiction. After that night, I believe it. I took the warehouse security job because it was easy money. 12-hour shifts, 3 nights a week, sitting in a climate-controlled office watching camera feeds. The warehouse stored medical supplies, nothing exciting, just boxes of gauze, syringes, bandages, that sort of thing. The most action I'd seen in 6 months was a raccoon that had somehow gotten into the loading dock. That was before the Tuesday that changed everything. My shift started at 8 p.m. and ran until 8 a.m. The warehouse was completely automated. No night staff, just me and the machines that sorted and moved pallets. The silence was usually comforting. That night, it felt suffocating. Around midnight, I was doing my routine camera check, cycling through all 48 feeds, making sure every zone was clear. Shipping bay, clear. Storage aisles A through M, clear. Loading dock, clear. Break room, clear. Then I hit camera 23, which covered the north entrance and the hallway leading to the administrative offices. I stopped breathing. There, clear as day in the grainy black and white footage, was a man. He was standing just inside the north entrance, which should have been locked, which I'd personally checked at the start of my shift. Wearing a dark jacket with the hood pulled up, his face was turned away from the camera, looking down the hallway. I felt my heart kick into overdrive. How long had he been there? How had he gotten in? I grabbed my radio with shaking hands. "Dispatch, this is Marcus at Warehouse 7. I have an unauthorized person in the building. North entrance, near the admin hallway." Static crackled back at me. "Copy that, Marcus. Police are being notified. Do not approach. Maintain visual and report movement." I switched back to camera 23, my finger hovering over the keyboard. He was gone. My stomach dropped. I frantically cycled to the other cameras, 24, 25, 26, checking every angle of that corridor. Nothing. Where had he gone? It had been maybe 10 seconds since I'd looked away. Dispatch. I've lost visual. Subject was at north entrance. Now location unknown. Copy. Continue monitoring. ETA on police is 12 minutes. 12 minutes. That's 720 seconds. That's a lifetime when there's an intruder in your building and you're alone. I started systematically checking every camera, my eyes straining in the dim light of the office. Storage aisles, empty. Shipping bay, empty. Loading dock. My blood turned to ice. Camera 31. Loading dock. He was there, standing between two pallets of boxes, and he was looking directly up at the camera. Even with the hood up, even with the poor quality of the feed, I could see that he was staring straight into the lens. Straight at me. I jerked backward, my chair rolling and hitting the wall behind me. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely work the controls. I switched cameras, trying to find a different angle, trying to see more details. He was moving now. I tracked him through cameras 31, 32, 33. He was heading deeper into the warehouse, toward the storage aisles, toward the section where my office was located. Dispatch, I said, and I hated how my voice cracked. Subject is moving toward the security office. My location. Marcus, lock your door if possible. Police ETA 7 minutes. I lunged to the door and turned the deadbolt, then dragged my chair in front of it for good measure. My office was small, maybe 10 by 12 feet, with one door, no windows, and 48 glowing monitors showing me every corner of the warehouse. Every corner, except the one he was currently in. I cycled through cameras 18, 19, 20, the storage aisles nearest to my position. Empty. Where was he? Camera 15. There. He was in aisle F, 3 rows away from my office. Still walking, still heading in my direction. But it was the way he was walking that made my skin crawl, slow, deliberate, like he had all the time in the world, like he knew exactly where he was going. I watched him pass through aisle G, then aisle H. 2 aisles away now. My office was at the end of aisle I, tucked against the back wall. There was only one way in, and he was walking straight toward it. Dispatch! He's almost at my location. Where are the police? For minutes out, Marcus. Stay calm. Stay calm. Easy for them to say. I switched to camera 12, the one that covered the corridor directly outside my office door. Empty. I checked camera 11, which showed the intersection where I met the main pathway. He stepped into frame. I could see him more clearly now, the camera mounted just 15 feet from where he stood. He was tall, maybe 6'2" or 6'3", wearing a dark jacket, navy or black. I couldn't tell in the monochrome feed. His hood was still up, his face still angled downward, hidden in shadow, and he had stopped walking. He just stood there at the intersection, motionless, like a statue, like he was waiting for something, or listening. I held my breath, afraid any sound might somehow travel through the walls, through the cameras, to wherever he was standing. My eyes flicked to the door, still locked, chair still in place, then back to the monitor. He turned his head, slowly, deliberately, until he was facing camera 12, facing my office. Then he started walking again. I watched him advance down the corridor, his pace unchanged, steady and purposeful. 20 feet from my door, 15 feet, 10 feet. He stopped directly in front of my office. I couldn't see him on the camera anymore. He was too close, the angle wrong, but I could hear him. Footsteps, just on the other side of the door. The soft rustle of fabric. Then silence. I stared at the door, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst through my ribs. What was he doing? Why wasn't he trying to break in? Why wasn't he doing anything? That's when I noticed camera 12 had a reflection feature. The metallic doorknob was just barely visible in the frame, and I could see the doorknob was turning. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the handle rotated counterclockwise. Testing it, checking if it was locked. I bit down on my fist to keep from making a sound. The doorknob turned a bit more, then stopped when it hit the lock's resistance. Silence again. I switched to camera 13, trying to get a different angle, trying to see what he was doing. The feed showed the corridor from the opposite direction, and I could see him, just his back, his hooded figure standing absolutely still in front of my door. 1 minute passed, then 2, then 3. He didn't move, didn't try the door again, just stood there, facing the doorknob, his posture unnaturally still. I've never been religious, but in that moment, I prayed. I prayed that the police would arrive, that my door would hold, that whatever was standing on the other side of that thin piece of wood wouldn't decide to force its way in. At minute 4, I heard it, the distant wail of sirens. They got louder, closer, and I saw red and blue lights beginning to flash through the high windows in the warehouse. On camera 13, the figure's head tilted slightly, like he was listening. Then, without hurrying, without any sign of panic, he turned and walked back down the corridor. I tracked him through the cameras, back through aisle I, through aisle H, through G. He was heading toward the loading dock exit. Camera 31 showed him pushing through the emergency door, setting off an alarm I barely registered. Then he was gone, disappearing into the night. The police searched the entire warehouse. They found the north entrance door had been jimmied open. Professional job. They said minimal damage. They found his footprints in the dust of the loading dock. They took my statement and the security footage, but they never found him. I kept working there for another month, but I never felt safe again. Every night, I'd watch those monitors obsessively, jumping at every shadow, every movement. But it was the playback that haunted me most, because when I reviewed the footage afterward, really studied it, I noticed something. In those minutes, he stood outside my door. When I thought he was just standing still, the lighting in the corridor had shifted slightly. The timestamp showed he'd been there for 6 minutes and 47 seconds. But I'd only noticed him for 4 minutes. What had he been doing for those missing 2 minutes and 47 seconds? And more terrifying, why had the doorknob stopped turning? The police said I was lucky, that he probably would have forced the door if they hadn't shown up when they did. But sometimes late at night, I think about that motionless figure and that slowly turning doorknob, and I wonder, maybe he didn't want to come in. Maybe he just wanted me to know he could. I should have known something was wrong when I saw the first set of eyes. I'd been working security at Timber Ridge Ski Resort for 2 winters, and I thought I knew the mountain pretty well. The job was simple enough. Patrol the lodge after closing, make sure all the doors were locked, check that the equipment was secured. Most nights, I'd finish my rounds by 11 p.m., then make the 20-minute walk down the mountain access road to the employee parking lot where I'd catch the last shuttle bus at 11:30. 20 minutes. That's all it was. A straight shot down a single-lane road through pine forest, with tall sodium lights spaced every 100 yards or so. I'd made that walk 100 times, maybe more, until the night I met the pack. It was late February, A Wednesday night after a light snow. I'd finished my rounds on schedule, locked up the equipment room, set the alarms, and headed out into the cold. The temperature had dropped to maybe 15 degrees, cold enough that my breath formed thick clouds in the air, cold enough that the snow crunched loudly under my boots. The first few minutes of the walk were normal. I passed under the first light, then the second, my footsteps the only sound except for the occasional creak of tree branches in the wind. I was thinking about the leftover pizza waiting for me at home, wondering if I'd have time to watch the game before bed. That's when I saw them, just beyond the reach of the third streetlight, where the darkness pooled thick between the trees. Two eyes, reflecting greenish yellow in the dim light. Too high off the ground to be a raccoon, too far apart to be a deer. I stopped walking. The eyes didn't move. They just stared at me from the shadows, unblinking. "Hello?" I called out, my voice embarrassingly shaky. Maybe it was a dog from one of the nearby houses, though I'd never seen a dog out here before. "Here, boy." The eyes tilted slightly, like a head cocking to one side, considering me. Then they were gone, vanished so completely I wondered if I'd imagined them. I stood there for a moment, my heart rate elevated, my hand moving instinctively to the mag light clipped to my belt. Just a dog, I told myself. Or a fox. Lots of foxes on the mountain. I kept walking, faster now, more alert, past the third light, then headed toward the fourth. The darkness between the lights suddenly seemed much longer, much deeper than I'd ever noticed before. That's when I heard it. A sound that made every hair on my body stand up. A yipping, howling call from someone to my left, high-pitched and wavering. Then another answering call from my right. Then another from behind me. Coyotes. I spun around, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Nothing but trees and snow. But I could hear them now, moving through the forest on both sides of the road. Branches snapping, snow crunching, and that awful yipping that seemed to echo from every direction at once. I started walking faster, my breath coming in quick clouds. 10 more minutes to the parking lot. Just 10 more minutes. I'd read about coyotes, knew they didn't typically attack humans. But I'd also read that they were getting bolder, especially in winter when food was scarce. And I'd definitely read that they hunted in packs. Under 4th Street light, I saw them clearly for the first time. 3 of them, standing in the road about 30 yards ahead of me. They were smaller than I'd expected, rangy and lean, therefore scraggly and gray-brown. But it was their eyes that froze me in place. 6 pairs of yellow-green eyes, all fixed on me with an intelligence that was somehow worse than simple animal hunger. The one in the middle, the largest of the 3, sat down on the snow-covered road. Just sat there like a dog waiting for a command, watching me. "Get out of here," I yelled, try and make myself sound big and threatening. "Go on. Get." None of them moved. I clapped my hands, the sound sharp in the cold air. "Get. Go." The large one yawned, showing a mouthful of teeth. Then, slowly, it stood up and padded off the road into the trees, followed by the other 2. But I could still see their eyes in the darkness, pacing alongside me as I walked. I was almost running now, my boots sliding on the packed snow. 5 more lights to go. 5 more lights, and I'd reached the parking lot, where there were buildings and vehicles, and my car with its locked doors and heater. Under the 5th light, I heard the yipping again, but closer this time. Much closer. I swung my flashlight toward the sound and caught a glimpse of movement. Several shapes darting between the trees, gray shadows flowing like water through the forest. "Leave me alone," I shouted, hating the fear in my voice. I don't have any food. There's nothing here for you. But they didn't want food, I realized with growing horror. If they wanted food, they would have gone for the resort's dumpsters, which were full of scraps from the lodge restaurant. They were following me because I was alone, vulnerable, moving like prey. I was prey. Under the sixth light, I counted them. 7. 7 coyotes pacing to the trees on both sides of the road, their paths converging and diverging like they were running some kind of complex pattern, like they were coordinating. For more lights, and maybe 4 more minutes. The shuttle bus was supposed to leave at 11:30, but it was only 11:20. Would the driver wait? Would he even see me coming? I fumbled for my phone with shaking hands, trying to dial the resort's emergency number. No signal. Of course, no signal. There never was signal this far down the mountain. I was completely alone. Under the 7th light, one of them crossed the road. It happened so fast I barely saw it. A gray blur sprinting from the left side to the right, passing maybe 15 feet in front of me. A test, I realized. Testing how close they could get. Testing whether I'd run. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, to sprint as fast as I could toward the parking lot and safety. But I knew with absolute certainty, that if I ran, if I showed weakness, they would chase. And coyotes could run a lot faster than I could. I kept walking, forcing myself to maintain a steady pace. Don't run. Don't show fear. Be big. Be loud. I see you. I yelled into the darkness. I'm not afraid of you. You hear me? I'm not afraid. But I was lying. I was terrified. Under the 8th light, 2 of them crossed simultaneously, one from each side, their paths forming an X in a row behind me. Closer this time. Close enough that I could hear their panting, could see the steam of their breath in the cold air. 3 more lights. Just 3 more lights. Under the 9th light, I heard footsteps on the road behind me. Not in the trees anymore, on the road itself. I spun around, flashlight raised like a weapon. 4 of them stood there, maybe 20 feet back, their eyes glowing in my flashlight beam. As I watched, they started walking toward me, slowly, deliberately, closing the distance. I backed away, keeping my flashlight trained on them, trying to watch them and the path ahead at the same time. My heel caught on something, a rock or a rut in the road, and I stumbled, nearly falling. The coyotes stopped. We stared at each other, me and these 4 predators, in a moment that stretched out forever. I could see details now. The scars on the big one's muzzle, the way another one's ear was torn and ragged, the lean hunger in their frames. Then, from behind me, I heard it, the distant rumble of an engine, the shuttle bus. The coyotes heard it too, their heads swiveled toward the sound, ears perking up. The big one let out a low whine, and suddenly they were melting back into the trees, dissolving into shadows as quickly as they'd appeared. I turned and ran. I ran the last 200 yards to the parking lot, my lungs burning, my legs pumping. I didn't care anymore about showing weakness or looking like prey. I just ran, my boots slipping and sliding, until I burst out of the trees and into the blessed, illuminated expanse of the employee parking lot. The shuttle bus was there, its door open. The driver, a guy named Pete I'd seen 100 times, looking at me with concern. "You okay, man? You look like you've seen a ghost." I climbed onto the bus, my legs shaking so badly I nearly fell. I collapsed into a seat and looked back at the tree line, at the dark mouth of the access road I just escaped from. 7 pairs of eyes stared back at me from the shadows, watching as the bus pulled away. I quit the next day, told my supervisor I'd gotten a better offer, didn't mention the coyotes. But Pete must have said something, because a week later they installed new lights along the entire access road and started running the shuttle up to the lodge for closing security staff. I heard later that they'd seen increased coyote activity on the mountain that winter, that they'd had to bring in wildlife services to trap and relocate several animals. I wondered if they got all of them. I wondered if they got the big one with the scarred muzzle, the one that had sat in the road, and watched me with those calculating yellow eyes. I work days now at a shopping mall in town. The pay's worse and the work's more boring, but I don't care, because I never have to walk down a dark mountain road again. Never have to wonder if those shadows between the trees are just shadows or something worse. And I never have to hear that sound, that high-pitched yipping howl that still, sometimes, echoes through my dreams. The sound of the hunt.